Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As you can tell by the start, this is a much different event than we've done before. We're very excited to have you here. This is a kind of a TED-style talk tonight, which I'm not a TED-style guy. I can't do that, so I'm going to do it kind of Todd-style. So I'm going to flip this around and act like a podium. But I would like to welcome you all to the 12th Annual Organic Center Dinner. For the past 3 years, I've had the honor of serving as president of the Center Board of Directors. When I came up here 3 years ago as president, I announced that we'd be accountable for our actions, we'd be responsible, and more importantly, we would get things done. I am very, very happy to say that with the amazing Organic Center staff that we have, this is all coming true. Our body of work in this short period of time is absolutely amazing, and I believe the best is yet to come. Tonight's event, as I mentioned, is something completely different. This is a true dinnertainment approach. We're thrilled to have the amazing Susan Finnegar tonight cooking this marvelous organic meal, which is already starting off great. And the Center Board is honored to have Anna LePay here tonight to deliver your keynote address. The food tonight will intertwine with the program. It's going to allow you enough time to eat, to enjoy yourself, while sharing the evening with your friends and associates. But please remember why we're here, and that your donations tonight and your continuing contributions to the Organic Center are truly changing the landscape for our industry. Whether it's about oranges, rice, nitrogen, apples, pesticide exposure, we're elevating the conversation on the benefits of organics by utilizing science as our guide. So please remember, this organization is about all of us in this room. And without your donations, we can't continue to serve you, your customers, and the future generations. Tonight after dinner, we would love for you to take a moment to look at the work that we have displayed and what we're doing. We'd love for you to look over our website when you get home and see what we're up to. But more importantly, look and see that we have been good stewards with not only your trust, but with your dollars. And also tonight, please join our social media campaign that's going on, which will be up above. I'd also like to thank tonight our sponsors for their generous donations and for their belief in our mission. Without the support of all the contributors, we would not be raising the bar and fighting the good fights. So I would like to thank our sponsors this evening: Stonyfield, New Hope Natural Media. Go ahead, come on. Nature's Path Foods, Organic Valley, Cliff Bar, Whole Foods Market, Horizon Organic, Earthbound Farms, Foxy Organic, UNFI, KeHE, Cal Organic Farms, National Co-op Grocers, Frontier Co-op, Mama Chia, and a big shout out to Better Life Organics, who provided all the produce far and wide for tonight's dinner, and a special thank to Edwards & Son for their help with the produce as well. The nice thing about a Todd Talk, it's pretty quick. So again, thank you, everybody in this room, not only for what you do every single day, but for allowing the Organic Center to exist, by helping us change the way this country thinks about food. It's important that we continue to constantly talk about what's right. I hope, and we hope from the Board of Directors, that you enjoy these amazing personalities tonight. You enjoy this evening, you enjoy your friends, the company, everything we have planned for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support, and have a great night.
And then a side of guac and a cumin fries. Yeah. Hi, Charles. There you go. It's about how fast can you do it? Fish tacos for Ron. How friendly can you be? Hi. And are you offering a great product? Ron, it's almost like creating a tiny little restaurant on wheels.
Take my hand and come with me because you look so fine that I really want to make you mine.
This is Iron Chef America.
3, 2, 1, time's up.
You guys all know this. I'm going to cut it the proper way, not the way Mary Sue cuts it. I better see if it's good.
Here. You okay?
Oh my God.
A successful team of Susan Feniger and Mary Sue Milliken began their separate careers in high school.
Be my girl! Be my girl! Are you gonna be my girl? Yeah!
Chef Susan Feniger is responsible for this evening's incredible organic dinner menu. Please join us in welcoming Susan.
Hi there. I'm a little dirty, sorry. How is everything? Are you guys okay? Yeah? Well, I hope that bao was okay. We forgot the tangerine salsa that went on it, but they were really wonderful. We ate a lot of them in the kitchen, just so you know. Good. Anyways, it's wonderful to be here tonight. I've been sort of on the run. I don't know, you guys didn't see too much of it, but I have 6 restaurants in LA and in Santa Monica, and I've been sort of running. I did an event in San Diego and then got up here this morning, and our team, my partner here from Mud Hen Tavern, was prepping all day yesterday. So anyways, just wonderful to be here tonight. And I have to say that I think among a group like you, I feel a little bit of like a dope up here in terms of thinking about how to save the planet and everything that, you guys are trying to do. I think if people were to ask me, or if I was to be given a questionnaire about, do I want to save the planet? Of course I would say yes. And if they asked me how I would do it, I would have literally no idea. And over the last 10 years, I think we've tried to educate ourselves and our team a little bit more about what little tiny bit we can do to make things and make this a better world as far as everything we serve at the restaurants. So I just want to back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about our history. Certainly my history, I think it could be explained in 2 words if I go way back, which is Velveeta cheese. And truly, this was, I have to say, this is from being, growing up in Toledo, Ohio in the 50s. Yeah. And my mother, she was a fantastic cook, but she thought these Velveeta cheese dreams and these pigs in a blanket that she did were just like the cat's meow. So, going from Toledo, Ohio to now was a very big, tough climb for sure. So about 35 years ago, Mary Sue Milliken, who's my business partner at Border Grill, we opened our first restaurant in Los Angeles. Of course, we knew everything then, or we thought we did. We were in our 20s, and we were opinionated about everything, about foods that we were used, where we sourced it. We were interested in supporting small local farmers even back then. We used to go down to Chino Farms, and we were obsessed with their products, but we were also obsessed with what things cost. And I had majored in business and economics and before I went to the Culinary Institute. So when I would ask them to break down what did different things cost, they were just, I think I offended them because they just wanted to load our car up and give us one price for it. So I think between the two hour drive down there to San Diego And in my old Datsun, you know, we had no storage space to do much at our little 9-table restaurant, which was our very first restaurant. So what we ended up doing is creating a partnership with the Vets Garden in Brentwood. They had 15 acres. They were starting their horticulture therapy program, and we started working with the horticulture therapist there who would plant anything we wanted her to plant for us. Matter of fact, I had just come back from my first trip to India, and I brought black mustard seeds, and she started planting black mustard seed sprouts for us. Mustard seeds and sprouted. And we were getting mizuna and chrysanthemum greens and little, you know, baby mustard greens. So it was just an amazing time. This was 1981. And the vets would actually pick them and deliver them, and then we were asked what we wanted to pay for those things. So it was just an incredible time, and I think at this time is probably when, I think this was like 1982, is when we started to think about being responsible, how we could educate our team, and how we could try to get a little bit more educated about what we were serving. I'd been working in French restaurants in the south of France, here, you know, back east, and so this was just sort of a whole new awareness being out here in California. So just a little bit more about our history. Sorry, it's a long time. 1984, I know, you guys are gonna be like falling asleep by the time I'm done, but we decided to open up our second restaurant, which was the bigger restaurant. So our first restaurant literally was on Melrose, 9 tables, 2 hibachis in the parking lot in the back. And we literally were cooking on the ground with 1 hot plate for a year until the health department said to us, you know, you can't really cook for customers on the parking lot ground. So anyways, we opened up City Restaurant, and we turned our first little restaurant into the Border Grill. So we were trying to decide, you know, before we did that, we decided we were gonna take a trip to Mexico. It was, do we want to do a Japanese noodle place or a taco place? And we decided taco. We took our first trip to Mexico. We drove all through Mexico City, the Yucatan, Merida, Valladolid, where we got tons of inspiration. And I think what we thought back then Mexican food was, growing up in Toledo, Ohio, was very, very different than what we were eating. There were so many amazing vegetables, produce, juices. This is back in the early 80s. It was sort of mind-boggling. So I'd never even seen a soft taco. I'd never seen a fish taco or a handmade tortilla. So really that sort of changed my life. I know that's, you know, a handmade tortilla, fish taco changing your life only comes from a chef speaking, but it really did. I mean, I just tell you this story is Mary Sue and I, in this tiny town of Merida, we were standing in front of this tiny window for probably 3 hours and writing down everything this guy was doing in front of us until he finally came out with like 2 little tacos, 2 little beers, and we ended up eating like every single taco he was making. He invited us back the next day where we had this amazing red bean stew that he made for us, a vegetarian red bean stew that ended up going on our menu. What was mind-boggling about it is that there was so much incredible produce. It was really wonderfully fresh and something that we had never thought of for the Mexican kitchen. So as we opened more and more restaurants, we learned to become a little bit more aware and responsible for the choices that we were making in those restaurants. I truly believe that the best way to begin to change how people think is to start by giving them information. And this is why I think the Organic Center and OTA are so very important. They're doing this tough job of trying to fight for and represent a new style of living. It isn't just about making sure that people understand, but also they understand what their options are and that they're, oh, someone must be calling me, sorry. Sorry about that. We do a bunch of fundraisers, and one of them where Bob Saget is on the board with me, and he did the most hysterical thing with a phone, but I don't know what it was, so I can't even do it. But it was very hysterical. Anyways, about 13 years ago, Mary Sue and I went to a conference at the Monterey Bay Aquarium in Northern California. This was truly another life-changing event. Now, I know there's been life-changing with the fish taco, now life-changing going to Monterey Bay Aquarium, but really this was just amazing for me. It was an intense weekend where we got a crash course about what we do as chefs really affects the planet. We learned about how close we were to destroying our oceans, and that the oceans itself and the planet by fishing irresponsibly and overfishing, dumping pesticides and fertilizers into our waters. So I have to say, both Mary Sue and I just were totally scared about this, and we came back and we got very involved with Monterey Bay Aquarium, and from that point on, all of our restaurants only serve sustainable seafood according to Monterey Bay Aquarium. Thank you. And believe me, the chefs weren't all that happy about it. I mean, we at that point had to take tuna off the menu, Chilean sea bass. You know, now we're pushing everybody to use trash fish. And so really, I think, you know, it's a challenge, but I think something very important. So we've worked very closely with many of the farmers markets to encourage people to buy locally grown produce, to help local businesses, and to reduce the carbon footprint. I think that when people come into our restaurants and they see that we're, you know, making an attempt, and believe me, it's small. There's many people that are doing way better job than we are. But in our 6 restaurants, we use all organic rice and beans. We serve only hormone-free, antibiotic-free meat. We serve all sustainable seafood. You know, I think that this shows our customers that we care, that we're trying, we care about our environment. Thank you. But we're, you know, honestly, we're continually evolving and expanding, you know, sort of like Obama on gay marriage. Anyways, okay. Seriously though, I think, you know, I have this platform, and I think many chefs do. I mean, I'm in this unusual position where I'm the boss of 500 employees in 3 different cities. And we actually have the opportunity, as many people do, to walk the walk. We do simple things also, like we recycle our cooking oil, and we use that for fuel in the food trucks, our food trucks. We recycle the oil and we make soap for our bathrooms at Mud Hen from that oil. And and we know that there's way more that we can do. There's no question about that. But I just want to shine a small spotlight or a large spotlight on some of the stuff the Organic Center is doing. Really amazing, fantastic work. One of the projects they're working on that I'm really interested in, and I'm sure many of you are too, and it has to do with rice, and we serve tons of rice in the restaurants, but is how to decrease the arsenic uptake in organic rice. Their preliminary findings show that genetics in the varieties of rice can play a role. So as some varieties will take up less arsenic from the soil than others. So it's very exciting to see that they're identifying those species that can maximize yield while minimizing the arsenic uptake. Another great project the Organic Center has going on is their collaboration with the National Soil Project that studies the soil health on organic farms to see if the organic matter locks carbons in and keeps them out of the atmosphere. Of course, I'm extremely interested in the citrus greening disease. You know, growing up in the Midwest, I just always thought that food came from grocery stores. I mean, that's where we thought it came from. Now, you know, living in California, we have 2 orange trees, 2 lime trees, a lemon tree, a kumquat bush, you know, more, but those are the citrus things that we have. And I think it's the most amazing thing. Go down in the morning, pick fruit, have a cup of coffee, play with our dogs. I find that extremely calming. But I'm imagining that if any of you are citrus farmers out there, it's probably not all that calming for you. But as a chef, it's just unbelievable to have this opportunity. And so the work that's being done with this is pretty incredible, and I thank God they're looking at this. You know, I think my career choices way back then would have been either to go into politics or become a farmer. Probably it was a good thing that I became a chef. I think that was probably the smartest thing. I lived on a dairy farm for about 1.5 years in Vermont, and you know, I can say that I thought the 17-year-old French boys that I worked with in the south of France were tough, but The dairy farmers, I think they were much tougher than those French kids were. All right. So speaking of eating, I'm almost done. You can keep eating. There was a ton of citrus we put in the food tonight. We tried to sort of stick to some of the stuff that the center's working on. So there was citrus in as many things as possible. In the falafel poppers, I forgot the tangerines, as I said in your bow. But you had the baby beet salad with the kumquats, the Brussels sprouts, and broccoli leaf. That was very interesting for us with lemon and lemon zest. The tangerines with the steamed buns, we didn't think you'd like that, so we left those out. The orange sesame dressing, was in the noodle salad. And then for dessert, you're going to be having a lemon semolina cake, a Thai tea with lime leaf and lime zest. And so we're just going to make sure that there's no way that you guys forget about the citrus greening disease that's happening. So it's amazing how interwoven the relationship is between our food and the health of the planet. Plants, animals, and humans. It's not always easy. It's so much simpler. We hear this all the time from customers, just to reach for the fast food, go for the cheaper option, ignore the damn seafood chart, and just serve damn wild barramundi. But then I wake up and I realize I'm lucky to be living in Southern California, where organic produce and meats are abundant, where new discoveries in science and health are constantly being tested, and where I have the chance to give back. So by being here tonight, you guys are all part of a vanguard, part of the first wave, and I really believe that, of people who care enough to take action to save the planet and its inhabitants. By being here tonight, you're signaling your willingness to try to take responsibility for making things better. That's just so huge. You guys all being here inspire me. I feel like I'm extremely late coming to the party by comparison, but I'm running as fast as I can to catch up. So thank you guys for all caring. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for taking the message back and spreading it around. Together we can create the change this planet needs. Now finally, enjoy the rest of your dinner. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the stage and welcome Dr. Jessica Shade, the Organic Center's Director of Science Programs.
Hey everyone. My name is Jessica Shade. I'm the Director of Science Projects for the Organic Center. And before I get to introduce our next speaker, I just want to give a shout out to a few more of our sponsors. So get ready to clap a little bit more. Thank you to Wholesome and Earthbound. Thank you both so much. So I am absolutely thrilled to introduce our next speaker, Anna LePay. Anna has been an inspiration to many of us through her award-winning books, magazine and newspaper articles, PBS series, speaking engagements, her Real Food Media project. She not only communicates about sustainable diets, but she invests in and actually acts on what it means to be sustainable. I was first introduced to the LePays by one of our research collaborators, Dr. Jim Galloway at the University of Virginia. He mentioned that Anna and her mother, Frances Moore LePay, were writing a book and were interested in including a section about nitrogen management in organic farming and needed some information. So, of course, we were honored to provide them information, especially since Frankie's book, Diet for a Small Planet, was one of the books that first shaped my eating habits back when I read it at age 12. So I have been an admirer of both her and her mother for a long time. And together with Frankie LePay, Anna founded the Small Planet Institute and Small Planet Fund, which has raised more than $1 million to support sustainable practices like organic farming since its founding in 2002. And Anna is also gifted in a wide variety of media communication to reach younger generations. For example, her Food Mythbusters exposes misinformation about industrial agriculture and shares the positive story about sustainable farming through creative movies, an online action center, and grassroots events. So we are so glad that she's here with us today to talk about the importance of the work both the Organic Center is doing, and also we're just so glad she's out there in general, fighting for the same vision that the Organic Center is fighting for. We need more people like her, not only to communicate the science supporting the benefits of organic, but also to inspire the next generation of organic activists, as she's inspired me. So I'd like to welcome Anna to the stage. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you. So good evening, everyone, and thank you, Jessica. Thank you, the Organic Center. And for me, it is a huge privilege and honor to be here tonight. And one of the reasons it is such a privilege is because I get to personally say thank you to every single one of you in this room. I represent a generation of parents who, largely because of the work of those of you in this room, have been able to raise my children the way everyone should be able to. So I have 2 young daughters, and I think about how much they've benefited from this movement. They have been consuming organic products since the very beginning. Thanks to many of you in this room, bath time at our house is not terrifying. I'm not freaked out about some toxic chemical lurking in the baby shampoo. Thanks to you and the food movement, my 2 girls know the difference between kale and chard. And they actually, and I'm not lying here, they actually enjoy eating both. And they have grown up thinking it is totally normal to know your farmer, your baker, and even, in our case now in Northern California, your fishmonger. So I really feel this huge sense of gratitude being here talking to all of you tonight. What I want to talk about tonight are 3 ideas I have for all of us about how we can strengthen our movement, how we can work together in this shared vision that I think we all have for a world in which everyone, everywhere is able to have access to safe, healthy, sustainable food. So the 3 ideas that I want to share with you tonight, the first idea that I want to talk about is the importance of celebration, the importance of celebrating our victories. And I want to stress that there's an importance here, not just because it feels really good to talk about when we win. Of course, that feels great. But I want to suggest that one of the reasons why we really need to celebrate our victories is because it helps us understand how we got here, and it helps us frame the meaning of what those wins are. And so I think about standing here tonight, how much we have to celebrate. Think about just the news of the past month alone, right? So we have the incredible news coming out from the Scientific Advisory Committee for the new dietary guidelines that put, for the first time, language around sustainability. They even did that really radical thing of daring to suggest that we might want to eat a little bit less sugar. We also had in the last month the head of the UN FAO coming out strongly and publicly calling on agroecology as a key solution for fighting hunger and climate change. And then yesterday, as many of you know, there was a little bit of business announcement after 7 months of negotiation and pressure and conversation and dialogue with civil society groups like Friends of the Earth and many others. McDonald's USA made a little announcement, right? They announced that they would stop sourcing poultry raised with medically necessary antibiotics. And that's just, a few of the positive news stories from the last month. And think about how far we have come in a generation. I think about just since I was born, how much more we are all connecting and connected to fresh food and connected to our farmers. Think about what I like to call kind of the farm to everything movement. So we have farm to school, but there's farm to hospital, there's farm to prison, farm to congregation. And I just saw something I swear I never thought I would see in my entire life at the SFO International Airport, farm to airport terminal, right? And I swear it's there. Go to the terminal, you will see it. So we have farm to table restaurants that are ubiquitous, and we have what I like to call farm to community, what you might call farmers markets. We have this incredible trajectory. Just since I was born, there were only a few hundred farmers markets left in this country. Today, there are more than 8,000. And farmers markets have become such a central place in communities that they're even tourist destinations in some cities, which if you've ever been to the Ferry Plaza in San Francisco, you know what I'm talking about. Or step foot on any college campus today, and you will see incredible work happening to bring healthy food into schools. I love the story that I just read last week in Civil Eats about a historically black college in Dallas, Texas, Paul Quinn College, that shut down its failing football team and converted their football field into an organic farm where they're growing 30,000 pounds of organic produce a year. Josh Vertel, who some of you know was one of the founding directors of the Yale Sustainable Food Project, he used to say, college students shouldn't be reading The Jungle and English 101 and then eating it for lunch. And thanks to the kind of activism that I am seeing on campuses today, students aren't eating The Jungle on many campuses today for lunch, for dinner, or for breakfast. Groups like Real Food Challenge are working on hundreds of campuses around the country to transform what's happening with school food, to take the $7 billion university food service market and transition it to organic and sustainable sourcing. Today, there are 15,000 students in Real Food Challenge, and they have helped to move $65 million worth of school food. So it was incredible stories like this one that I wanted to hear more of, that I wanted to celebrate, and a coalition of organizations and I started 2 years ago, the Real Food Media Contest, to catalyze and try to get submissions of short films showcasing some of these incredible stories that I knew was out there. I have to say, when I told friends that I was launching a short films contest about food, they said, Anna, do you really think you're gonna get anything that interesting? I mean, it's probably just gonna be some hipsters in Brooklyn sending you some ode to their fetish of artisanal mayonnaise. And I will say we did get a few hipster submissions, maybe a few from Brooklyn, maybe a few from Portland. But we have gotten 300 films submitted to this contest. I've learned about anti-hunger activists in Salt Lake City, about creative health policy in Holyoke, Massachusetts, even about a former tech guy leaving his IBM job to become a sustainable snail producer in Vienna, Austria. So we have heard incredible stories like this through the contest. And it's stories like this that I think are so important to be sharing. Like I said, not just because it feels really good and it inspires us to know how much is happening around the country, but because it teaches us how we won. All those farmers markets didn't just spontaneously appear in 8,268 cities around the country. They emerged because communities organized and communities passed policies to make that possible. All the change we're seeing on college campuses today, it's happening because students are getting trained to see that they have power and that they can act on it. But the other reason why it's really important to celebrate our victories is because we also have to be sure that we control what our win means. And I want to give you one example. So a lot of you are familiar with the little fight that my current hometown of Berkeley had last year with a small industry called Big Soda. we put a 1 penny per fluid ounce sugar drinks tax on the ballot. And when the coalition that came up with this policy put it on the ballot, this coalition knew that it was going to hear from Big Soda. And that Big Soda was going to sort of do everything it could to try to fight the policy. And that's exactly what happened. So our city of 100,000 people got bombarded with messages from Big Soda. We heard ads against the policy in mailers. I got about 15 mailers from Big Soda. We saw billboards and on every transit station. We even heard in movie theaters that the soda industry was getting ad space to run ads against the tax before movies in our local theaters. This was Berkeley, though, so I think I heard most of those were booed when they came on the air. But Big Soda ended up spending $2.4 million to try to stop this from passing. Now, the coalition that put this policy out there, it didn't have such deep pockets, but we had people. We had every single elected official, we had every school board member, we had diverse coalitions, and in the end, I think you know what happened. We won. So 75.1% of Berkeley voters voted in favor of this policy. But one of the things that was so interesting to me was what happened next. So what happened next is that the American Beverage Association tried to change and tried to shape the narrative of what this win meant. The spokesperson for the American Beverage Association said to any media who would listen, he said, Berkeley doesn't matter. It's this aberration. I mean, look, it's Berkeley, after all. He said, Berkeley's the kind of city that gives free pot to poor people. And we probably do have some program where we're like giving medicinal pot to homeless people, but his point was, and he said it in USA Today and on NBC and MSNBC, he said, Berkeley isn't any town in America. You know, Berkeley doesn't look like the rest of the country. And what was so important is that the coalition that passed this policy got out there and framed the story of this win by saying, you know what? Actually, Berkeley does look like the rest of the country. When you look at our demographics, it's economically and racially exactly representative of the country. And Berkeley has long set policy precedent. It was the first city to voluntarily desegregate our schools. It was the first city to create non-smoking sections for restaurants. It was the first city to create curb cuts for wheelchair accessibility. You get the idea. Our message was that Berkeley is not an aberration, it is a bellwether. And so celebrating our victories, yes, it feels really good, and we need to do it. And we need to do it because it means we continue to control the story of what our victories mean. The second idea I want to talk about is the importance of exposing misinformation and exposing industry spin. In 1962, Rachel Carson wrote, if we are going to live so intimately with these chemicals, taking them into the very marrow of our bones, we had better know something about their nature and their power. When she wrote those words in Silent Spring, she knew a lot about these chemicals and a lot about their impact. And at the time Silent Spring came out, the chemical industry did everything it could to try to undermine her message. Monsanto and other big chemical companies at the time went on a massive PR campaign to discredit her. Time magazine even wrote that Silent Spring was hysterically over-emphatic. Hysterically over-emphatic, they said. Now we know, thanks in large part to research from places like the Organic Center, that sadly, Rachel Carson was not hysterically over-emphatic. In fact, the warnings that she put out more than 50 years ago have even become more evident today, right? We know so much more about the dietary health risks of pesticide exposure. We know so much more about the impact of what it does to farm worker and farmer children to be exposed to pesticides in the fields. We know so much more about the chemicals, that body burden that children are being born with straight out of the womb. And yet we're seeing that instead of sort of listening to the hard facts and acknowledging the hard facts of what we know to be true, that the chemical industry and those companies that use these chemicals in agriculture are kind of spinning the messaging again. They're hiring fake scientists and fake experts. They're funding fake organizations. They're doing things like funding bloggers and folks on Twitter to be on social media. They're underwriting TV shows. They're funding documentaries. All of this to shape the story about what people believe is healthy and what people think is harmful. And so they're funding groups like the Alliance for Food and Farming, which to many people sounds fabulous, and that looks like it could be from a webpage of the Organic Center. But dig behind this group, as many of you know, and it's funded by groups using chemicals in the field, and it's been one of the biggest outspoken opponents to resources like the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen. Yesterday, or this week, you might have seen the news that a coalition of farmers and environmental activists and food safety advocates descended on Capitol Hill and delivered to the Obama administration's doorstep a petition calling on the administration to take strong action around pollinator health and address the role of neonicotinoids specifically in undermining pollinator health. 4 million people signed that petition that got delivered this week. What you might have also seen is that this week there was also another petition that was causing some buzz, excuse the pun there, but causing some buzz on social media. And that petition was calling on the Obama administration to consider all of the sources of information about pollinator health. And they were calling on the administration to realize that neonicotinoids play an important role in agriculture, and we should not have any strong regulations around these pesticides. Now, who was behind that petition? It was groups like CropLife America, which you may know, it was formerly known as the National Association of Chemical Manufacturers. Who else is behind that petition? Bayer Crop Science, one of the largest manufacturers of neonicotinoids, right? So it's that kind of spin that we are up against. One of my favorite front groups recently is the Alliance to Feed the Future. So this group produces a lot of resources, including Common Core vetted curriculum for public schools in this country about healthy eating. So who's behind the Alliance to Feed the Future? It's groups like the Calorie Control Council that makes saccharin, that represents the makers of saccharin and Olestra. Groups like the Association of Dressings and Sauces, and the Frozen Pizza Institute, which I didn't even realize you needed a whole institute to discuss frozen pizza, but apparently you do. I don't really think those should be the people that are teaching our children about healthy food, but they are. So it's really important that we look at who's shaping the story about what's healthy and what's not, that we make sure that we're doing all we can, that the science that comes out of places like the Organic Center is seen as widely as possible, is used by journalists as the sound science that it is, that the science from places like the Organic Center is what is guiding policy, and not the science from places like the Alliance to Feed the Future. So John Kinsman, for those of you who knew him, was one of our most incredible advocates for organic dairy. And he was one of the most incredible advocates for the dignity of all farmers and farm workers. And when I first met John Kinsman about 12 years ago on his farm near Madison, Wisconsin, I asked him, I said, John, how did you make this huge shift from conventional farming to organic? How did you do it? Why did you do it? And he said, Anna, it was a really simple decision. He said, I woke up one day in a hospital wing, and I knew it was my farm chemicals that had put me there. And I think about John, and I think about every single farmer who I've ever interviewed who transitioned from conventional to organic has basically told me the same story. You know, they've told me stories of what it was like to come in from the farm and have to strip off their clothes and take a shower before they could even hug their children, right? They've told me stories of what it was like to watch neighbors and cousins and their mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters get sick, and some of them die from cancers that they connected to the farms, to the farm chemicals that they were using on their farm. They've told me about going to bed nauseous or waking up dizzy, of having fears of getting Parkinson's disease. All of these stories now backed up by reams of peer-reviewed research about what these farm chemicals do to our farmers and farm workers. And so when we stand up for organic food, we are really standing up for farmers like John Kinsman. And it's that connection, and it's all of these connections to what organic stands for that are so important to highlight, to ensure that we really, really are as strong as we can be as a movement. Because when we are making these connections, that is where our strength comes from. And those who are trying to block our progress, they realize that. And so if you look at how the debate about organic gets framed in the media, it so often is getting framed in just its most narrow part. It's getting framed as, you know, is this one organic apple more nutritious for you than this one conventional apple? And you get headlines like this one. Now put aside for a moment, and only for a moment, just put aside for a moment the really good sound science, a lot of it coming from the Organic Center, that yes, that organic apple is much better for you. But put that aside for a second. Instead, focus on what this framing misses. This framing misses all of the connections. All of the connections. When we stand up for organic, when we fight for organic, it connects us to every single farmer and farm worker, to the farmers in Wisconsin, to the farmers in Salinas Valley, to those in Mexico. When we stand up for organic, when we fight for it, it connects us to working class communities across this country, like this one in West Texas, where a synthetic fertilizer plant exploded and killed 15 people and injured 160 more. When we stand up for organic, it connects us to communities like this one in Midland, Michigan, living in the shadow of Dow Chemicals manufacturing plant, where the EPA has detected the highest level of dioxin anywhere in the country. When we stand up for organic, it connects us to every living creature on the planet, all the frogs and the birds and the pollinators. It connects us. And I know that when I personally speak out for organic and I choose organic for my children, I do so not only because I want the healthiest food possible for my kids, of course I do, but I make that choice because I don't want to have to think that there is some mother out there who, in order to get my food on the table, had to worry that those chemicals used to grow my food might have made her children sick, or stunted their intelligence, or planted the seed of cancer in their bodies. And so when we make these connections, we are so powerful. And those who would try to stop us from making progress know that. And that is why they try to hide these connections. And that's why they call us names. And so when you hear kind of the organic critics calling people like me, or people like you maybe, the organic mommy mafia, you might have seen that one recently in the New York Post, or calling us the PC food police, what I think they are really trying to do is hide these connections. Because they know when we draw these connections, when we bring them to light, we are absolutely unstoppable. So what I want to leave us with tonight is this understanding of when we do these things, when we make these connections, when we really show all the ways in which organic benefits so many parts of our lives, when we expose the information that's trying to undermine what we do, And when we celebrate our victories, when we show what they really mean, that we have so much strength as a movement. And I know that when I think about all of you in this room, and I think about all that you're doing to support places like the Organic Center, when I think about every company you're building and helping to grow, with every farmer you're helping to transition from conventional to organic, with every policy you're helping to pass, with every time that you support those of us out there trying to advocate for these things and for organic, when we do all of this together, we are making history. And I am so excited to keep making history with all of you. So thank you, and thank you, Organic Center.
Friends of the Organic Center, join us in welcoming Board of Trustees member Mike Ferry.
Am I on? There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Ferry. I'm the president of Horizon Organic, part of White Wave Foods, and I'm also the treasurer of the Organic Center board. I've only got a couple of moments of remarks to share with you this evening, but while I'm speaking, I would like for the entire Organic Center Board of Trustees to come up and join me on stage so you all can see who the folks are that are on the board. So can you please join me? And while they're on their way up, I just want to take one moment and thank Anna LePay for a very powerful, moving speech that I think motivates all of us for why we do what we do. Welcome. Let's also give another hand, if we can, to Chef Susan Feniger for a terrific meal tonight. And the great news is that the night is still young. It's only 9:15, and in a moment, the curtains in the back are going to open, and we're going to reveal the Science and Soul Dessert Lounge. I got to tell you, we're going to have some fundraising fun back there, and it's certainly going to beat trying to fight for a spot at the Marriott bar. I think they saved me for last, by the way, because they wanted to make sure I stayed sober until at least 9 o'clock. So I think we all know that the center's work is critically important to this industry, or you wouldn't be here tonight. You're all bought in. Frankly, that's why White Wave Foods, over the history of the center, has given over $1.5 million to the center. And for those who donate tonight, as I said, we're going to have a lot of fun. There will be free drink tickets, and there will also be books by our guest speakers tonight. So looking forward to everyone donating in the back of the room. Now, Meg, I noticed that the entire Hirschberg family is here tonight. So I got to be thinking there's at least 5 donations coming from Stonyfield. Gary, I got to be honest, it's fun for me to ask you for money for once. Just kidding. I know you guys have been incredibly generous over the years with the industry, so, but you can take a little good-natured ribbing. We're going to have 5 seating areas in the back, each one of which will highlight one of the center's current research projects. We're going to have a photo booth. We're going to have live music from a piano player, and it's sure to be a lot of fun. So I'd like for the curtains to open, and if everybody can get up and join the Organic Center Board of Trustees in the back for the Science and Soul Dessert Lounge. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening.